Hello everyone, welcome back to Tony Sports Games for another video. This is our mid-season update video for our online league, the SimNation College Football League, or SNCFL. Of course, I am playing in this league as the SMU Mustangs, and we're in week 9 now, so I wanted to just give an update on how our team's doing here midway through the season, and then take a look at the league as a whole, the top 25, how the conferences are shaking out, and kind of go from there. So, we'll start with ourselves here. We had a big opportunity week 1 with a matchup against the Ragin' Cajuns, Louisiana Lafayette. And at the time, they were piloted by Invisible Witness. He has since dropped them to just focus on Auburn, and I know he's in a bunch of other leagues too, which is a shame because they're off to a great start. But had a bit of a, I messed up my export. So we made a bit of a mistake, and we got smoked in this game, as you can see. We very well could have lost it anyway, but hopefully we would have done a little bit better than we did. A lot of my starters weren't in the game. Just nothing that I did for week 1 saved. It was just I messed something up on the export or downloading the league file. So anyway, we lost that game. We got thumped. And then, as you can see, since then we've played. Well, we haven't played great, to be frank with you, but we have won. So we're 5-1. We're sitting in pretty good position as far as the conference goes and things like that. But it has been a bit of a struggle. As you can see, all these games here, week 2 at Rutgers, 1 possession win, home against San Jose State, 1 possession win, 3-point win, 5-point win. So I have been struggling a bit through the early portion of the schedule. One of the main reasons for that, our main quarterback here, Jamel Jones, who I talked about in the season preview video, he kind of did this to me last year, where he looked like he'd be the best option, but by the end of the season, I kind of ended up basically benching him because Vernon Moe was performing better. Early on in this year as well, he didn't play week 1 because of my mistake. But, from week 2 on here, you can just see just a lot of really poor performances, especially these first 2 games he played. The Rutgers game, 10 of 24 for 102 yards and a touchdown. And I think he had, 3 interceptions. Just pretty brutal, honestly. And then even the next week against San Jose State, this was, I can't even, 15 of 42 for 156 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. Our whole team was terrible in this game. The only thing that saved us was San Jose State was just as terrible. These teams together in this game, 38 of 104 passing. Just some really comical and tragic stuff. I'm a little surprised that I didn't just bench him because this was so bad. The only reason we won both of these games was our freshman running back, Zeke Jackson, had a punt return for a touchdown in both of these games, and that was the difference in the scores here. But as you can see, I got enough data. We've been able to kind of trim some things out of the playbook. Obviously, we've brought his attempts down as well, kind of focused more on running, and he has been pretty solid the last 3 weeks now, so I suppose he saved his job, but I was really getting pretty antsy because there was just some terrible, terrible performances. On the bright side, as far as rushing goes, now Zeke Jackson started out the whole offense started out kind of slow. We obviously get thumped in week 1, and then just because I didn't have week 1 then the right data to kind of start trimming some things, so I feel like everything just got delayed, a few weeks. But as we've gone through the last few weeks here, we're starting to really get Zeke Jackson going. He is a really special player. As you can see, the last 3 weeks now, over 100 yards, Probably could be trying to get him the ball more. I'm kind of spreading it around right now, but he's looking very good. So that bodes well for us moving forward here. Um, our defense has been pretty uneven, especially terrible against the rush. Some of that data is skewed by week one. I think Invisible and Louisiana ran for 407 yards. So that didn't help, but we've continued to struggle against the run. So this last week, we just played Froggy in Central Florida. And sorry, Froggy, this was apparently our get-right spot. We finally win by multiple possessions. It really was a pretty competitive game through most of the first two quarters. If you look right here before halftime, we score with 11 minutes left. There's a little bit of back and forth afterwards. We get the ball going along. Well, actually, no, it's not a long drive. Let's see. Late in the first half, this was kind of where the game swung. So it is 20-14. We lead. This is, early to midway through the second quarter. Froggy and UCF go on a long drive all the way down the field to our 10-yard line. They miss a field goal. Then, both teams exchange punts. Then this is where the game kind of gets out of hand for UCF and Froggy here. Minute and 34, we get the ball back, and, it's an 80-yard touchdown pass. Then we kick it off, and, UCF 3 straight incompletions, so no time comes off the clock. They punt it back to us with only 38 seconds left, and then it's a 10-yard rush by Jackson and a 41-yard touchdown rush by Jackson. So really the last 2 minutes of this game, it goes from 14-20 to 34-14 at halftime. Then, we come out and score again after the break, and the game's pretty much over at that point. So I would say when you look at the totality of the box score, it was a little bit more competitive of a game than the final score indicated. Obviously UCF still put up a lot of yardage on us, but so anyway, I already texted Froggy, and he's in good spirits, so keep going, Froggy. You're not out of it yet. But so we are now in a pretty solid position, even though it hasn't felt great going through the early part of the schedule here. I think we're starting to get some things together, and we are sitting in a pretty solid position now moving forward. Now we've got a couple big games coming up late in the year. We have Tulsa this week, which hopefully we don't lose that at home. But then we've got our last bye week, and then we close the season with a difficult stretch here at Tulane, home against Houston, at East Carolina, home against Temple. So these Houston, East Carolina, and Temple are kind of the three other top teams in the American at the moment anyway. So we're in good position, but we will need to avoid stubbing our toe against one of these better CPU teams down the stretch here. But so that's kind of the update for us. I need to keep tweaking the defense, see if we can get them playing a little better by the end of the year. But all in all, for how we've played through a lot of these games, to be 5-1, couldn't really ask for much more. So we're feeling good there. Also, feeling very good about this development in our recruiting. Now, if this guy, this is Clifford Fitzgerald, he's the number 15 overall ranked recruit in the country, and we did secure his commitment just this last week. It was a big week for us. We got a 5-star quarterback and our first really big win of the year to start feeling good about ourselves. But a few other teams were involved here, most notably Baylor, and Nebraska was in there for a while. You can see, I don't know if Stewart ever had an offer on this guy, but looked at him anyway. Baylor was really the ones that were kind of in the thick of it with us to the very end. I probably wouldn't have even targeted this player if he didn't have interest in us to start the season off, but since he did, we tried to pursue him pretty heavily from the beginning. Well, from week 2, because none of my week 1 recruiting saved either, which was a bummer. But so we're making some progress in recruiting. We also got a couple other guys in week 9 here. Got this defensive end, Clifford Runyon. I think Runyon is spelled differently than Richard Runyon, so I can't say he's his younger brother, although I would like to. And then this free safety I think is probably a pretty nice player, Eric Jones. He's a 3-star out of Texas, but has some pretty good grades, so I think we're at least on the track to getting a decent recruiting class together. We still have some more work to do there, but if we take a look, and then also, I didn't mention his name yet, but yes, Richard Runyon has been very involved as we go along here. Since we are running the ball more, and he missed week 1 also. I didn't have him in the lineup week 1. I guess he played 17 snaps, but it was probably only on run plays or something like that. I don't know, but it didn't work out. Since then, he's been really good. He has over 100 yards in 4 of the 5 games he's actually played in. Not really peppering him with targets in the last couple games here, but he has 54 targets on the year. So, I mean, basically, there's no spoiler alert to anyone that plays us later in the year, but we have Hezek Jackson, a really good freshman running back, and, of course, we have Richard Runyon. So we are trying to work the ball to those 2 players as much as we can. We've got some other guys stepping in, but, yes, my beloved Richard Runyon is having a good senior season. We're not, overusing him, but I know he'll be there when we need him. So doing well there. Now, if we take a look at the top 25, and I wrote down some notes here, so I'll just kind of breeze through where we're at with the top 25 and the biggest games everyone has remaining. Sorry, I'm going to get my paper here so I do this quicker, but so at number 1 we have Auburn. This is Invisible Witnesses team, undefeated. Big win against Stewart's UCLA squad in week 1. Their biggest game left is in week 11 against ULM, Skelter's ULM team that will possibly determine the SEC. Which one is that? The SEC West? Yeah. So one big game left, but some really good work out of Auburn early in the year. They definitely deserve to be up there. Number 2, we have Darren's Maryland team, are defending national champions. They have some big games left to go here. They've got week 11. They will play Stewart's Michigan squad. In week 10, they'll be at Indiana, which is one of Bama's teams. Indiana, a little bit sneaky, doing pretty well. There's a lot of big games left in the Big Ten to close the year, but that's where Maryland's at. Number 3, we have Matt's Clemson squad. They play at Wake Forest this week, which probably, if he wins that, will probably lock up the Atlantic, barring any catastrophic issues, but they're cruising along there. Number 4, you have Stewart's Michigan team, who have been really, really good. Really, really good so far this year. They do have some big games left. They've got week 10. They play Iowa. That's Kevin's team. Iowa's doing pretty well also. Week 11 at Maryland. Week 13 at Ohio State. So some big games left for Stewart and his Michigan squad, but they're looking very strong. And then in week 14, they play Garrick's Michigan State squad. I had to put in here, Garrick, new to the league, takes over Michigan State. This is his schedule. Week 2 versus ULM. Week 5 at Ohio State. Week 7 at Indiana. Week 9 versus Maryland. Week 14 and 15 against Michigan and Auburn. I mean, rough schedule in year 1 for Michigan State, but hang in there, buddy. I'd like to say it gets better. It'll get a little better as you build the squad up. Just a tough conference, So Number 5, we have Texas Tech. This is another one of Darren's teams who have been really, really good. Biggest games here, they have Week 11 at Skeletor in Oklahoma State, and then actually a little Darren on Darren crime in Week 15. Texas Tech will be at Kentucky, so we'll see how that shakes out. At 6 here, we have our top CPU run team, the Boise State Broncos. They'd be a great squad to take over if anyone's looking to possibly join the league. They do play at TCU in Week 9. That'll be a big game in the Mountain West there. At 9, you have Sharks Georgia squad. They're really good. He kind of stubbed his toe a couple weeks ago against Missouri, but other than that, they have been looking pretty dominant. So Sharks going to be in there. They've got Darren's Kentucky team in Week 13. They do end with 3 straight road games to end the year, so I'm sure Shark will be trying to close out that stretch run strong. Number 10, you have the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns, now CPU run, formerly Invisible's team. Only loss was last week at Coastal Carolina in Week 8. But obviously they smoked us Week 1, and they're going to be definitely in it still there in the, I think it's Sun Belt. 11, Ohio State, also CPU run. Pretty good team. They do have a lot of big games left also. They've got, they're playing Indiana, I think this Week 9. That's Bama's team. Their only loss so far was at Louisiana in Week 3. I think Invisible was still there then, but they play at Kevin's Iowa team in Week 12. They play Michigan in Week 13. They play at Maryland Week 14. So a brutal ending of the year schedule for Ohio State, but they are also going to be a threat in those games. So we will see what happens with the Buckeyes down the stretch here. 12, you got Skeletor's ULM squad. Only loss was at Vanderbilt in Week 8. Got a big game, as I mentioned, in Week 11 at Auburn. And then they do play at DWK's Alabama squad in Week 13. Week 11, that ULM-Auburn matchup probably will determine the SEC West. So we've got some big games coming up here, weeks like 9, 10, 11 in a lot of these conferences. But 13 is Coastal Carolina. Their CPU only loss was Week 1 versus Boise. They play, I wrote down in Week 10, they play Arkansas, which is one of Starfinder's teams. So we'll see how they can do. Then you have Skeletor's Oklahoma State Cowboys at 14. Only loss was against Invisible in Louisiana in Week 2. The big game for them, and the biggest game in the Big 12 that's left, is Week 11. It will be Texas Tech, I think, at Oklahoma State. So that'll be a big deal there. At Oklahoma State. Tech at Oklahoma State. 15, Bama's Indiana team. They are hanging around. Got some big games coming up. At Ohio State in Week 9, home against Maryland in Week 10. 16, Florida Internationals, the CPU team. 17, Virginia, CPU. 18, ourselves, SMU. And really it's like week, 11, 12, 13 is kind of a big stretch run for us. 19, you got San Jose State, a CPU team. And then at 20, we have another one of Bama's teams, Cal, the Golden Bears. They play Oregon in Week 10, which will be for at least the lead, if not to take control kind of the Pac-12 North. And then at Week 14, he has to go at UCLA. So I suppose that Oregon game is big, because if Oregon wins out, he'd want to have that tiebreaker just in case, as UCLA is going to be no joke on the road there. I feel like I skipped someone. Did I skip UCLA? Sorry, Stuart. UCLA is 7th. They're kind of in cruise control. A couple close wins along the way against the Washington teams. But in Week 11, they'll play at Arizona State, which is, I think, another one of Darren's 0 to hero teams. versus Fresno State week 14. Or sorry, 12. 12 versus Fresno State, week 14 versus Cal. So, yeah, sorry. UCLA in the top 10 at 7. They're rolling along there. 21, Georgia State, another one of Stewart's teams. They are going to be in the mix in the, the Sun Belt also? Yeah, Georgia State. So, yeah, they're going to be in the mix there. Stewart's doing a good job with them. They've got a big game week 12 at Coastal. 22, Texas is a CPU team. They're still hanging around the Big 12. And then at 23, you have another one of Stewart's teams, Duke, at Virginia week 10, at Georgia Tech week 12. So I think they only have one loss. They've slipped a bit in the polls, but Stewart controls his own fate, I would say, in the ACC Coastal. But we'll see how that shakes out. And then Iowa State, a CPU team at 24. And then at 25, you have Darren again with the Kentucky Wildcats, who, as I mentioned, have a couple big games coming up. And this week they play Starfinder's Florida squad, so that'll be interesting to see. So then if we just look at kind of the standings here, the ACC, in the Atlantic, I'd say it's pretty much just Matt's, unless he really stubs his toe. He's got Wake Forest this week. I think it's at Wake Forest. Yeah, it's at Wake Forest. So, if he gets past them, then I'd say he has it all but wrapped up. But we'll see there. In the Coastal, I'd say it's still kind of up for grabs. Now, Stewart does play both, Virginia and Georgia Tech, I think, yet. So maybe Stewart can take control of that, but we'll see. In the American, it's still pretty open. I mean, East Carolina and Temple off to a good start in the East, and then SMU, we have control of the West for now, but we still have to play Houston, East Carolina, and Temple coming up. East Carolina at Cincinnati this week will be a big CPU game. If Cincinnati can kind of rise up and take them down like they did to Houston. Cincy is kind of helping us out. They got off to a pretty rough start, but there's a lot of teams still in the mix here. I'd say both in the East and in the West, especially if we trip up in one of these games, the Houston game or something like that. That'll be it's going to get spicy, basically. If we lose to Houston, it's going to get spicy, but we'll see. We'll try to close it out, but some big games coming up. In the Big 12, some big games still to go. The biggest one, of course, Texas Tech at Oklahoma State, as I mentioned, but have some CPU teams, Texas, OU, Iowa State, that are pretty solid, that will be hanging around trying to play spoiler. The Big 10, a lot of huge games still to go. In the East, we've got Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, Indiana still hanging around, still in the mix. The biggest game is probably Michigan at Maryland, Week 11. So all eyes will be on Maryland, Michigan in that week. But some other teams there hanging around as well. And then in the West, Kevin's doing a pretty good job with Iowa. He's doesn't have it wrapped up yet, but he's in good position. Has big game at Michigan in Week 10 and still has Ohio State to go. So those will be some big games there. Conference USA, I don't know if there's any human teams in here, but North Texas 5-0 in the conference. Western Kentucky 3-0 in the East. FIU and James Madison have a leg up there. Nothing really to say about the independents in the MAC. Of course, Northern Illinois ahead, but a lot of teams in the West at 2-1. So a lot still to be determined there. In the East, Ohio and Bowling Green a little bit ahead of the pack. Also, of course, welcome Curtis to Buffalo, hopping in the middle of the season. So he will be taking the rest of the year to kind of learn the ropes and get ready for his first offseason. So good luck, Curtis, at Buffalo coming up here. Mountain West. It's interesting because really it's probably going to be two of these top four teams. Wyoming is hanging around. So keep an eye on Wyoming. I think that's Vanilla Gorilla. They are in the mix. But Boise State and Colorado State do not play each other. Also, TCU and San Jose State do not play each other. So, Gorilla's in it. Boise State on top for now. TCU on top for now, but we'll see how that shakes out in the stretch run. Then the Pac-12, in the north, I think that Cal-Oregon game is probably going to end up determining the north, but we will see. And then the south, I think it's still Stewart is going to end up running away with it, but we'll see if Van can get USC stabilized. I don't know how long Fresno can keep going at the pace they're at, but I wouldn't expect any big surprises there. SEC, a lot of big games to play yet also. Auburn and ULM being a huge one for the West. And then in the East, like I said, Shark has the one loss to Missouri, so, but definitely capable of winning out. Darren doing pretty well with Kentucky. They could be in the mix there also, and then I guess we'll just see if Missouri can keep going. I mean, they're on a little bit of a roll here, so we'll see though. But and last but not least, in the Sun Belt, Stewart's Georgia State team, I think they can do it. Coastal Louisiana will be hanging around, and then even Starfinder's Arkansas team in I think it's year two or three of the rebuild, but he's got them playing a lot better this year, so they're going to be in the mix also. So that will be that'll be interesting to see. And lastly, if we look at kind of recruiting news, familiar names up here at the top so far. The number one overall recruit actually committed to Invisible and Auburn, so congrats to Invisible on that. Big offensive tackle out of Washington, D.C., Tony Scott. So we'll see, of course, how these rankings shake up as we continue to go along here. But that's kind of the league update. So for ourselves, I'm going to try to keep kind of tweaking some things. We'll try to get the defense together. And if we don't stub our toes, we should be able to make it to the conference championship game. But this is going to be a tough stretch here after Week 10. So we'll have to make sure we have as good a read as possible on Tulane, Houston, East Carolina, and Temple. All three of these teams have really just as good of players as us. So, game planning will be important. We'll see how we can close the season out as we come down the stretch here. So, I think that's about it for our SNCFL wrap-up, or mid-season update, rather. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next video.